Imagine I told you that everything you've been taught about attraction is backwards, that chasing attention, trying to impress, and proving your worth to women is actually killing your chances more than helping them. That what women really respond to has nothing to do with money, looks, or even your age, but with something far deeper, something almost no one talks about. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why some older men can command desire effortlessly, why women behave differently around them, and how you can step into that same energy without playing games or pretending to be someone you're not. You're going to see things you've never heard before, insights that are not in books, not in dating apps, and not in typical advice videos. These are the truths women instinctively feel but rarely voice. They slow down around certain men, they open up in ways they never do with others, and they stop testing the men who have mastered one simple, overlooked quality. You'll discover exactly what that quality is and how it shifts attraction instantly. By the time this video ends, you'll start to understand the subtle signals women give, the behaviors they only show to men they truly respect, and the mindset shifts that make older men irresistible without trying too hard. If you watch closely, you'll realize that attraction isn't about effort. It's about presence, emotional mastery, and internal strength. Stay with me until the very last second, because if you act on what you're about to learn, it will change the way you show up with women forever. You'll start to notice reactions you never noticed before, opportunities you never saw, and the kind of magnetic presence that makes women naturally gravitate toward you. This isn't theory. This is real, actionable truth, and once you understand it, nothing will ever feel the same again. Let's slow this down, because this is where most men misunderstand attraction at a fundamental level. Women do not respond to effort in the way men think they do. Effort feels noble to the man who is giving it, but to a woman, effort without emotional stability often feels like pressure. And pressure, no matter how well-intentioned, activates resistance rather than desire. What women are unconsciously scanning for is not how much you do, but how regulated you are while doing it. When a woman enters the presence of a man who is emotionally safe, something in her nervous system relaxes. You can see it before you ever hear it. Her shoulders drop, her breathing slows, her voice softens. She stops rushing her words. This isn't a performance, it's a biological response. The body does not lie. Emotional safety tells her without explanation that she does not need to defend herself, impress, or stay alert. And this is where real attraction quietly begins. Most men believe attraction is created through intensity. More talking, more texting, more compliments, more planning. But intensity is not the same as depth. Intensity can feel exciting for a moment, but it is exhausting over time. Depth, on the other hand, feels grounding. An older man who is attractive understands this instinctively. He doesn't crowd the space. He doesn't rush the connection. He allows silence to exist without rushing to fill it, because silence doesn't threaten him. And to a woman, a man who is comfortable in silence is a man who is comfortable within himself. Here is the part that many people avoid saying out loud. Women often feel emotionally unsafe around men who are trying too hard, not because those men are bad, but because their sense of self depends on her reaction. When a man's mood rises and falls based on how interested she seems, she feels responsible for his emotional state. And the moment she feels responsible, desire collapses. Attraction requires freedom, not obligation. An emotionally safe man does not need constant reassurance. He does not fish for validation. He does not interpret every pause, every delayed response, every moment of distance as a personal threat. His stability allows her to exhale. And when a woman can exhale around you, she begins to associate you with peace rather than tension. That association is powerful, it is rare, and it is deeply attractive. This is why women open up differently with men they are drawn to. They don't just share successes, they share confusion. They admit uncertainty. They speak about fears they don't voice elsewhere. This is not accidental. It's not coincidence. It's her subconscious saying, I believe this man can hold complexity without collapsing. Emotional safety is not about fixing her problems. It's about having the capacity to sit with them without panic, judgment, or the need to control the outcome. Older men who understand this stop trying to prove their worth. They don't over-explain. They don't defend themselves unnecessarily. They don't argue to win. They listen without interrupting. They respond instead of react. And this creates a dynamic where the woman feels seen rather than evaluated, seen rather than managed, seen rather than pursued. That shift changes everything. You see, pursuit often communicates urgency, and urgency communicates fear of loss. Emotional safety communicates abundance. It says, I am not afraid of this moment ending because I am grounded regardless. That grounding allows a woman to move toward you freely, rather than being pulled by expectation or pressure. Desire grows best in space, not in force. Another subtle but critical point is this: emotionally safe men do not personalize a woman's emotional fluctuations. They understand that emotions are weather, not character. So when she's distant, moody, uncertain, or quiet, he does not immediately interpret it as rejection or failure. His calm response teaches her that she does not have to regulate his emotions while navigating her own. That alone makes her feel lighter in his presence. This is why women slow down around men they find attractive. They stop rushing toward conclusions. They stop overthinking the future. They stop asking, where is this going? Because something about his presence already feels anchored. Emotional safety removes the urgency to define, label, or control the connection. And paradoxically, the less he tries to lock it down, the more she wants to stay. Many men confuse dominance with safety. They believe control creates security, but control creates compliance, not desire. Emotional safety is quiet confidence. It is consistency without rigidity, strength without aggression, leadership without force. It is knowing who you are so clearly that you don't need to convince anyone else. This is also why women become more expressive, more playful, more feminine around men they feel safe with. Not because they are instructed to, but because safety allows softness to emerge. When a woman feels she can relax, her natural warmth surfaces. And that warmth is not given to men who feel emotionally volatile or unpredictable, regardless of how charming they appear on the surface. At its core, emotional safety is philosophical. It comes from a man who has made peace with himself. A man who is not trying to extract meaning from a woman's attention. A man whose identity does not collapse in the absence of approval. When you no longer need someone to validate your worth, your presence becomes calm. And calm is contagious. So if you take one thing from this, let it be this: attraction is not built by doing more, saying more, or proving more. It is built by becoming someone whose inner world is steady enough that others feel steadier around you. When your presence feels like a place to rest rather than a problem to solve, women will naturally move closer. And the truth that stays with you long after this ends is simple: the strongest form of attraction is not excitement, it is emotional relief. Let's talk about something most men experience but very few understand: the tests, the challenges, the subtle provocations, the sudden shifts in tone, the questions that seem designed to unsettle you rather than seek answers. Many men assume this is just how women are. It's not. It's how women behave when they are unsure of the ground they're standing on. Testing is not cruelty. It's verification. When a woman meets a man and cannot immediately feel his emotional center, she begins to probe. Not consciously, not maliciously, but instinctively. She wants to know where his limits are, what shakes him, what makes him defensive, what makes him perform. These tests are not about control. They are about safety. She is asking without words: if I relax around you, will you collapse or become unpredictable? Now here's the part that changes everything. When a woman is genuinely attracted to an older man who is internally grounded, the testing slows down. Sometimes it disappears entirely, not because she has surrendered power, but because she doesn't need to confirm strength that is already evident. Calm consistency removes the need for interrogation. Most men fail tests because they don't realize they're being tested. Or worse, they realize it and overreact. They try to dominate the test. They become sarcastic, defensive, argumentative, or performative. In doing so, they communicate the very instability the test was designed to detect. The paradox is this: the man who tries to win the test loses attraction, while the man who remains unaffected passes without effort. An older man who is attractive understands that not every challenge deserves a response. He doesn't rush to correct. He doesn't need to prove intelligence. He doesn't escalate tension to assert dominance. He listens, observes, and responds only when it aligns with his values. That restraint is not weakness, it is self-mastery, and self-mastery is profoundly attractive. Women test men they don't yet trust. They stop testing men they respect. Respect doesn't come from force. It comes from consistency over time. When your reactions are predictable, calm, and proportionate, her nervous system begins to relax. She no longer needs to poke the structure to see if it holds. She can feel that it does. This is where many younger men get confused. They believe attraction is built through intensity and edge. They think keeping a woman on her toes means constantly sparring emotionally. What they don't realize is that chaos does not create desire. It creates vigilance. A woman may stay engaged with a chaotic man, but she never fully relaxes. And without relaxation, attraction cannot deepen. An older man who understands himself does not personalize a woman's testing behavior. He doesn't take it as an insult. He doesn't interpret it as disrespect. He understands it as information. He sees it as her system asking questions, not attacking him. That perspective alone keeps him calm, and that calmness answers the question better than words ever could. There's also a deeper philosophical layer here. Testing often reveals where a man derives his sense of identity. If his identity is dependent on approval, the test exposes insecurity. If his identity is dependent on control, the test exposes rigidity. But if his identity is rooted in self-respect and internal values, the test finds nothing to grip onto. There is no emotional hook to pull. This is why women stop playing power games with men they find attractive. Power games exist only where power is uncertain. When leadership is clear, games feel unnecessary. She doesn't need to provoke jealousy. She doesn't need to threaten withdrawal. She doesn't need to manufacture drama to feel desired. His presence already communicates stability. And here's something that surprises many people. When the testing stops, intimacy increases. Conversations become deeper. Playfulness replaces tension. There is less posturing and more authenticity. Not because the man demanded it, but because his steadiness invited it. He created an environment where honesty feels safer than strategy. It's important to understand that this doesn't mean women never challenge men they respect. Healthy challenge exists in all dynamic relationships. But there is a difference between curiosity and combat. Respectful challenge seeks understanding. Testing seeks reassurance. The former remains when attraction is strong. The latter fades when trust is established. Older men who get this right don't announce their boundaries loudly. They live them quietly. They don't threaten to leave to gain compliance. They are simply willing to leave if their values are compromised. That willingness is felt long before it is ever tested. And paradoxically, because she senses he is not afraid to walk away, she feels no need to push him toward the door. This is also why attractive older men don't rush to correct a woman's emotional state. If she is upset, they don't immediately try to fix it to restore peace. They can sit in discomfort without anxiety. That ability communicates strength. It tells her, "Your emotions do not control me, and I am not threatened by them." That message alone dissolves many power struggles before they begin. What most men don't realize is that the end of testing is not the end of attraction. It is the beginning of trust, and trust allows desire to mature into something deeper, more sustainable, and more fulfilling. Without trust, attraction stays superficial and volatile. With trust, it becomes steady and expansive. So if you find yourself constantly navigating drama, challenges, and emotional turbulence, don't ask how to outplay the game. Ask why the game exists in the first place. Often, it's not about her behavior. It's about whether your presence communicates certainty or confusion. And here's the truth worth sitting with. The strongest position you can occupy is not dominance, charm, or control. It is emotional neutrality grounded in self-respect. When nothing needs to be proven, nothing needs to be tested. Because the moment a woman feels she no longer has to test you, she finally feels free to choose you. Let's move into the part that quietly determines everything else, yet is rarely discussed honestly. Purpose and direction. Not ambition in the loud, performative sense, but inner direction. The kind that shapes how a man moves through the world, even when no one is watching. Women are far more sensitive to this than men realize. They don't just observe what you say you want. They feel whether your life is actually going somewhere. When a man lacks direction, his attention becomes scattered. His energy leaks into seeking approval, chasing reassurance, and trying to anchor himself through other people. A woman can feel this immediately. Even if he's charming, successful, or attractive on the surface, something feels unstable underneath. And instability creates urgency. Urgency creates pressure. Pressure quietly kills attraction. An older man who is genuinely attractive doesn't rush. Not conversations, not intimacy, not commitment, not outcomes. And this calm pace is not strategy. It's a byproduct of knowing where he's headed. When you are internally aligned with your own path, you don't need to pull someone toward you. You simply keep moving forward, and those who resonate naturally walk alongside you. This is why women don't try to control men with direction. Control emerges when there is uncertainty. When a woman feels unsure of a man's internal compass, she may try to define the relationship, accelerate milestones, or subtly manage his choices, not because she wants power, but because she wants predictability. Direction removes that need. A man who knows his values, boundaries, and long-term vision already provides a sense of structure without force. Purpose also changes how a man handles desire. He doesn't confuse attraction with urgency. He doesn't interpret chemistry as a call to abandon his life. He enjoys connection without losing himself in it. This balance is rare, and rarity amplifies value. A woman senses when a man is choosing her, not clinging to her. Choice feels affirming. Clinging feels burdensome. There is something deeply calming about being around someone whose life has momentum. Momentum doesn't mean constant success. It means movement, growth, learning, direction even in uncertainty. An older man who has lived long enough to experience failure, recalibration, and resilience understands that life is not linear. That understanding gives him patience. And patience, when grounded in self-belief, feels powerful. This is also why women don't rush men with purpose. They don't pressure them for immediate clarity or constant reassurance, because his direction already signals stability. She trusts that he will communicate when needed. She trusts that silence doesn't mean disappearance. She trusts that setbacks don't mean collapse. And trust creates emotional spaciousness. Emotional spaciousness allows desire to breathe. Many men misunderstand this and think they must always be available, always responsive, always accommodating to keep attraction alive. But availability without direction feels empty. Presence without purpose feels hollow. An attractive older man is present when it matters, not omnipresent out of fear. He prioritizes his life not as a performance, but as a commitment to himself. This is where philosophy enters the conversation. Purpose is not something you find once and hold forever. It's something you refine through lived experience. It evolves as you evolve. But what matters is that you are engaged with your life, that you are not waiting for a relationship to give you meaning. When meaning is outsourced, attraction becomes transactional. When meaning is internal, attraction becomes a byproduct. Women are drawn to men who are in relationship with their own lives. Men who wake up with intention, even if that intention is still forming. Men who are curious about their own growth. Men who are not afraid of solitude. Because solitude, when chosen, reflects inner fullness rather than loneliness. This is also why women don't panic about the future with men who have direction. They don't obsess over labels. They don't demand constant confirmation. Because his consistency answers questions before they're asked. His life trajectory speaks louder than promises, and promises without trajectory are empty. An older man with purpose also handles uncertainty differently. When things are unclear, he doesn't grasp for control. He can say, "I don't know yet," without shame. That honesty builds credibility. It shows that his confidence is not built on pretending, but on trust in his ability to adapt. That adaptability is incredibly attractive, especially in a world that constantly changes. There is also something liberating for a woman when she realizes she doesn't need to be the center of a man's universe to be valued. In fact, she often feels more valued when she is not, because she knows she is wanted, not needed, desired, not required. And desire that comes from abundance always feels safer than desire that comes from lack. Purpose also protects attraction over time. When challenges arise, a man with direction doesn't spiral. He doesn't abandon himself to keep peace. He doesn't sacrifice his integrity for temporary comfort. He navigates conflict with perspective. That steadiness turns moments of tension into moments of deeper respect. And here's the quiet truth beneath it all. A man with purpose doesn't ask, "How do I keep her?" He asks, "Does this align with who I am becoming?" That question shifts the entire dynamic. It places him in authorship of his life rather than reaction to someone else's choices. And authorship is deeply attractive. So if you are listening to this and wondering where to begin, don't start by trying to be more interesting to women. Start by becoming more engaged with your own life. Clarify what matters to you. Build something that challenges you. Commit to growth that continues whether someone is watching or not. Attraction will follow not because you chased it, but because you became someone worth walking beside. And the reflection I want to leave you with is simple but demanding. When your life has direction, relationships stop being your anchor and start becoming your companion. And that shift changes everything. Let's bring this to the deepest layer, because this is where everything finally converges: age, money, looks, status. These are not the core drivers of attraction, they are symbols. What women are actually responding to is something far less visible and far more powerful: your internal posture. The way you sit inside yourself. The way you relate to your own worth when no one is applauding. The way you move through the world when approval is absent. Internal posture is not confidence in the loud sense. It is not dominance, bravado, or performance. It is quiet self-respect. It is emotional regulation. It is the absence of desperation, and women are exquisitely sensitive to it because it determines how safe, stable, and grounded they feel in your presence. Two men can say the same words, do the same actions, and receive completely different responses. One feels heavy, needy, and uncertain. The other feels calm, clear, and solid. The difference is not what they do. It is who they are being internally while they do it. Internal posture leaks through tone, timing, body language, and energy. It cannot be hidden for long. This is why status alone does not sustain attraction. A man can have money, influence, and recognition, yet still feel emotionally hollow. When his identity depends on those external markers, he becomes anxious about losing them. That anxiety creates rigidity. Rigidity creates emotional pressure. And pressure erodes desire. Women may admire status, but they relax into internal strength. Internal posture is revealed most clearly under stress. When things don't go your way, when plans change, when a woman disagrees with you, When you are misunderstood, a man with a fragile internal posture becomes reactive, defensive, controlling. He needs to reassert his worth in the moment. A man with a grounded internal posture remains composed. He does not rush to be right. He does not collapse or explode. He trusts himself enough to let moments pass without proving anything. This is deeply attractive because it signals psychological maturity. It says, I can handle discomfort without outsourcing my stability. That capacity is rare, and rarity creates value. Many men mistakenly believe attraction comes from being impressive, but impressing someone places you beneath them. You are seeking evaluation. Internal posture removes the need for evaluation altogether. You are not waiting to be chosen because you have already chosen yourself, and that subtle shift changes how women relate to you entirely. When a man has strong internal posture, he does not chase validation through attention. He does not need constant reassurance that he is desired. He enjoys connection, but he does not feed on it. His emotional state does not rise and fall based on another person's interest. That independence is not coldness. It is sovereignty, and sovereignty is magnetic. This is also why women behave differently around men with strong internal posture. They stop performing. They stop posturing. They stop trying to control outcomes. They feel free to be authentic because there is no emotional volatility to manage. She does not feel like she has to protect his ego or regulate his mood. And when that burden is removed, attraction deepens naturally. Internal posture also shapes boundaries. A man with self-respect does not announce his boundaries aggressively. He enforces them calmly. He does not threaten consequences. He simply lives in alignment with his values. When something does not align, he steps back without drama. That quiet firmness communicates strength far more powerfully than confrontation ever could. This is where many men misunderstand masculinity. They think strength is about asserting power over others. In reality, strength is about not being controlled by emotional impulses. The ability to pause, to reflect, to choose response over reaction. That is internal leadership, and women respond to leadership that begins within. Internal posture also determines how you handle rejection. A man with weak internal posture interprets rejection as a verdict on his worth. A man with strong internal posture sees it as information, not identity. He does not become bitter. He does not chase explanations. He does not seek closure to soothe his ego. He simply adjusts his direction and continues forward. That resilience builds quiet confidence over time. And here is something rarely discussed. Internal posture shapes how time works in your favor. As a man grows older, he either becomes more grounded or more resentful, more centered or more rigid, more wise or more defensive. Age amplifies whatever internal structure already exists. This is why some older men become deeply attractive, while others feel invisible despite experience. It is not age that creates attraction. It is how age has refined or hardened the inner self. Women are not drawn to men who know everything. They are drawn to men who are at peace with not knowing everything. Men who are curious rather than threatened. Men who are reflective rather than reactive. Men who are comfortable with complexity rather than desperate for control. These qualities all originate from internal posture. This is also why internal posture cannot be faked. You can memorize lines, you can copy behaviors, you can adopt techniques. But under pressure, the truth emerges. The nervous system reveals what the mind tries to hide. This is why real transformation does not come from tactics. It comes from inner work, from facing insecurity, from building a life that feels meaningful to you, from developing emotional literacy and self-trust. When your internal posture is solid, attraction stops being something you chase. It becomes something that responds to you. You stop asking, how do I be more desirable? And start asking, am I living in alignment with who I respect? That question alone reshapes your presence. So if there is one place to invest your energy, it is here. Not in trying to appear confident, but in becoming grounded. Not in performing strength, but in cultivating self-respect. not in seeking approval, but in building a relationship with yourself that does not collapse under pressure. Because in the end, the most attractive thing about an older man is not what he has accumulated, but what he no longer needs. And the thought I want to leave you with is this: when you stand firmly in who you are, the world adjusts around you, and attraction becomes a natural consequence, not a goal.